Stephen Mallon. I'm the Managing Director of Cunning Running Software Limited, and what we produce is some specialised mapping for use in mission-critical situations. What does that mean? That means there are both counter-terrorism and military force protection scenarios in which our customers want to understand the threats in the environment around them. We help them do that using specialised geospatial tools, but we do it in a way that actually they can relate to with their job experience. They don't have to be specialists.
So who are your customers? Which sector are they from?
They come primarily from two sectors. One is the military, who are responsible for defending either bases or other assets that are potentially vulnerable to attack. The other sector is law enforcement, where again, primarily with a counter-terrorism perspective, people are concerned about the potential for threats and attacks on those, and we're able to help them understand whether that be rifles, drones, other forms of attack, where they might be vulnerable to that from. And by extension, for that same community, using some of the same tools, we also give them the ability to much more efficiently plan search operations, again, using the geospatial techniques that are at the heart of everything we do. Well, to me, innovation is not invention. So innovation is about bringing the components together to create something that perhaps hasn't existed before, even though the parts of it may have. So it's connecting up all the things that need to come together to give something new and different that solves a problem out there in the world. Well, I think there's two parts to that answer. I was thinking a little bit about this earlier. So from our perspective, certainly at the heart of our product, a software product, we have other elements within that, which we leverage some excellent technology from third parties, as well as doing our own development of some of the core capabilities. So we certainly work closely with some of the key providers for that. But actually, if you were to ask me what is the major collaborative element of what we do and the contribution to innovation, is actually the relationship we have with our customers. Because the whole history of our product set has been one of co-creation, effectively. So we have had a product, it's been long-standing over many years, and it's evolved in response to the shifting customer requirements, the shifting threats that they face, their need for new and changed capabilities. We've always kept very close to them, understood where they were trying to get to. They often have good ideas themselves, even though they don't quite know how they would be realized. And we can take that away and look for the software components and capabilities that we can use to address those. So it's a constantly evolving process of understanding where they're at, what they need, and then bringing that forward. It's definitely the customer's mission. I mean, that's what we're trying to support. I mean, our mission, we're a little company, we're trying to make money. Yep. And survive long term. You know, their mission is to prevent harm, defend assets, etc. But the problems they face in doing so are forever changing, and hence their mission's forever changing, and we need to keep pace with that. So we need to keep close to them and be thinking about, and even anticipating sometimes what their needs are going to be, and bringing forward ideas. I'll prefix that by saying I've been the MD, and I only joined this company less than 3 years ago. So if you like, I have personal experience only of the relatively recent times. And I know at some points in the past, inevitably for a small company, there have been ups and downs and a need to change track. And but again, I think it's been customer led. So what the product did originally has radically changed a couple of times in the past, where although it's some of the underlying engine has been the same, the actual application, what it was before, has ceased to be important, but actually new things have arisen, and it's been able to adapt to that effectively. I think, again, it's sort of natural, as you suggested. You know, technologists or techies like to tinker and play. We're mainly software techies here, so even the MD, I do have a software background, as it happens. I haven't really done that professionally for many years, but I'll tinker in the corner and just try little bits and pieces out, and little technologies, techniques, etc. Then I might go to our developers and say, well, what about this or what about that, and they can tell me if it's really viable or not. But equally, some of my colleagues have got areas that they have personal interests in, like Phil, who's sitting beside you, can't be seen in the shot, but has an interest in drones and flies a drone of his own, and will therefore come forward with ideas based on that experience, just playing around for his own sake, and say, but here's what it might mean for us. So, and it's a small company, so there's a lot of dialogue between everybody involved and ideas kicking around. So, Ukraine's a very particular situation, a very fast-moving situation. I think the main effect we see for our customer sets at the moment is it's very much raised the profile of just how serious a threat that can be. A lot of the concerns, certainly on the law enforcement side in the UK, previously have been about essentially hobbyists just messing things up, or people doing unhelpful but not necessarily too malign things with their drones. I think now the evidence from Ukraine is clear that these things can actually be very effective tools in the hands of bad people as well as good. And therefore the threat profile and the interest in how one might counter that has certainly been raised by Ukraine. And it's always the way in any conflict situation is that the pace of to and fro and the competitive process effectively between the enemies drives things forward much more rapidly than occurs in peacetime. And you're seeing that in spades in Ukraine, particularly given the challenges that Ukraine has faced in the resources they've had available to them. They've had to innovate to survive. No, to be honest, it doesn't really feature in what we do, except maybe in the very distant background. I mean, fundamentally, AI in its current guise needs data, large amounts of it, large numbers of cases to work on, from which you can infer patterns and generalities. That isn't really the case for most of what we do. Probably in the background of some of the classification of features in some of the geospatial data sets we use, people are actually using AI to identify land use, what it is that there is in aerial imagery and stuff like that goes. But that's within the provider organizations. We don't actually get involved with that directly ourselves. I think it is partly the changing threat and the nature of operations that they have to undertake. So they need to know how to respond effectively to that. I think counter drone approaches are still somewhat in their infancy. It's a bit of a wild west out there of technology and solution options for people, and I think they're still working through what the right mix is. We can be both part of that mix, for example, but also our tools can give them actually some of the analysis they need to understand how some of the other more active technologies can be best put to use and make some decisions between what actually is going to be most effective for them. And I think in the counter-terrorism world, of course, again, that's another ever-changing threat scenario. The dominant threat changes from time to time, and that keeps them on their toes. Oh, well, that's one of those how long have you got questions, isn't it? Because that's, in one sense, that's the classic valley of death discussion, which always comes up in sort of innovation circles, and it's real. I mean, but particularly so for those who are trying to bring radically new solutions to market. You have the science and invention phase at the beginning, which in the scheme of things doesn't cost so very much, but you get it to a point where it needs to be productionized, and then to get it to the point where it's a well-established product that people can easily buy in the way they understand, that is the valley of death, for which funding routes are difficult to find. So that's certainly a true scenario, but it's not really one that affects us too greatly in what we do, because our model is a co-creation one. We're not radical innovators, we're integrators of, if you like, relatively leading edge technologies. So we fund the innovation that we do, out of the profit stream we have, and we reduce the risk of that process by keeping close enough to our customers to give us a fairly high degree of confidence that where we put our reinvested profits is actually generating something that people will ultimately want to continue to buy. So I sort of recognise the question, but for us, it's not quite like that.
When it comes to collaboration, are there other disciplines and companies that you would like to reach out to in terms of, maybe the next 5 years of your company's development?
Undoubtedly so. I mean, historically, we've been a relatively self-contained product, partly because of the nature of what we do and the way it's deployed. I think that will shift in the future, both for reasons of customer demand and also where we want to take the product. So I think we're certainly interested in trying to consolidate other specialist forms of analysis into what we do. We don't cover all of the skills that are required for threat analysis of a form that might be presented in a geospatial visualization and representation. So there are certainly people doing much more detailed analysis work in areas like crowd dynamics, CBRNE, and some of the analysis required in the RF spectrum when it's more complex than what we would do, which could usefully be brought together with ours to give customers a more complete picture of some of the threat scenarios they face. So that's certainly one thing we're already looking at. But equally, dissemination is another area of interest for us. We produce products which historically have been, in a normal manner, either printed even or certainly emailed around, but actually for tighter timelines and with the way people are now making information available to the frontline operators using a more IT-based approach, we need to be looking at how we most effectively connect to that and actually push that information through to the end users. So again, there are people in that space to provide those type of capabilities. We're interested in working with them to look at how do we make that as seamless a process as possible for customers. At the moment, we haven't, though in the past we have to a small extent. We've had some of the sort of the PhD-based where you work with them, for example, to create small, very focused bits of capability. That is a model that we've used in the past. It's one we would consider again for the future if we were looking for something very, very particular to fill a gap in what we were doing. At the core of that, it's more of the same because it's a continuing demand, and as I was explaining earlier, the precise nature of that will change. We will need to keep investing in progressing the product to make sure it remains relevant. But actually, to broaden the business out and actually give ourselves a bigger revenue base and an ability to invest more in that, we're also looking at trying to support some of the more general capabilities, particularly on the policing side, to expand on the search capabilities, for example, but also into other specialised policing areas that have got, in principle, the need for this type of geospatial presentation. And that probably means we need to make some technology changes as well in terms of the software base that we're working from. So over the next 5 years, I expect to migrate some of the underlying technology in the products to make it more easily scalable and introducible into some of those other areas. Smart people. It's an SME, so we need people that are confident of working in small teams where they haven't got recourse to a huge backup of reserves of other people to depend upon. So everybody has to bring their own strong skills to the party, but equally must be able to work as part of a team and actually to like that and bounce ideas around and be confident in bringing their picture, but also work with others to get the sum is greater than the sum of the parts effectively.
So these software engineers, as C++ developers, what?
Presently, we're primarily a C++ shop, but probably in the future, that's probably some more of the web technologies as well. TypeScript and other related capabilities are going to become as important as that as part of the mix that we've got. But equally important, if you look at the spread of people we've got in the organisation, we have geospatial specialists, We have customer support, which is, as I was explained, absolutely fundamental to what we do, maintaining those close links with the customer. And we've got some people with actual frontline end user experience as well, which is to bring that in-house as well to inform what we do and be part of that internal dialogue. So maintaining that mix of different perspectives, absolutely key.
There's an interesting picture behind you. Can you just explain what we're seeing?
So yes, gesturing behind me there. This is an example of a shot from our software. We operate in both the 2D and the 3D domains in the way we present the information. Both are relevant and important for different aspects of what we do, but the 3D always looks nicer, even though it's not always the right tool for the job. But this is an example of the sort of thing you might see if you were in the law enforcement domain, and concerned with protection of a public venue, an asset. In this case, it's a football stadium. So we're looking at that, and without going into great detail, overlaid on that 3D model is some of the results of analysis with colouring to indicate within that area where potential particular types of threat might most likely or physically be possible to be launched from. So this is what we're doing is fundamentally technical analysis and then presenting that in a way that enables people to get an understanding of it in the domain that they're working in. So 3D helps with that because it's more quickly appreciated effectively.